First up, let's take you to the big story developing at this hour. It's now official, Bangladesh will miss the upcoming T20 World Cup in India. After days of intense negotiations with the ICC, the Bangladesh Cricket Board has now confirmed that it will not travel to India for the tournament. The decision comes after the ICC rejected Bangladesh's plea for a hybrid model, which meant that it had to happen at a neutral location, which would have seen matches shifted to Sri Lanka. The ICC, remember, had already made its stand very, very clear just last evening, saying that T20 would remain in India, citing no security concerns. Now, with Bangladesh stepping aside, Scotland will take its place. This is a major win, as many are calling it, for India, which has consistently maintained that the country is fully equipped to host the World Cup safely, adding that Bangladesh is politicizing the sport, unnecessarily turning a global tournament into a diplomatic flashpoint. But what really is happening here? First, our turmoil with Pakistan, now Bangladesh. Where is this headed? My colleague Nikhil Naz is here. Nikhil, what times to really be watching the sport the way you are? But the question is very simple. In this battle of national pride versus a game that is as good as a national game, who wins? Who wins in situations like these?
Well, actually, there's no straight answer to that, Sonal. Actually, nobody really wins in this. I know you mentioned, and I think that's a correct assessment, that many will see it as a win for India because India maintained that it is a safe place for international cricketers to be coming and participating. But if you remember, we spoke a couple of days ago and I said, listen, we are heading towards a standoff like we've never seen in the history of the sport. And unfortunately, that's exactly the way it's turned out. As things stand right now, you can pretty much say that Bangladesh will become the first ever team in the history of cricket to be removed from a Cricket World Cup by the ICC. We've had situations in the past where teams have voluntarily decided not to play a game or two and have then conceded points. But it's for the very first time a team will be eliminated or taken out, or for a lack of a better word, of a World Cup. What happens now? What are the immediate effects? Well, I think, as you mentioned, this is a political decision, no doubt about that. I think if it was left to the Bangladeshi cricketers, maybe we would have had a different decision being taken. What's really interesting, Sonal, is that I was listening to the government representative doing a press conference a short while ago, and he gave every detail but for one, and I think that was the most crucial detail missing. He forgot to tell us, or rather didn't tell everyone, what was the conversation that was had between him and the Bangladeshi cricketers. Remember, there was a meeting with the cricketers and the representative from the government. He said, whatever was spoken there, I don't want to mention this. That is just between the players and us. And I find that very odd because for the last 2 weeks, Bangladesh Cricket Board has laid bare every little detail in their conversations with the ICC, with the government, with everyone else, but they are not telling you what the conversation with the players has been. And I can hazard a guess. I think the only party that is losing out here is the Bangladeshi cricketers, because remember, it's a cricketer's dream to be playing in a World Cup. And because of the political turmoil that you see at the moment and the issues that have crept up politically between India and Bangladesh, unfortunately, it's the Bangladesh cricketers that will be paying a price for it.
But then, Nikhil, the question is simple, right? And the answer also simple. In this fight between politics versus sport, politics wins this round.
Unfortunately, Sonal, politics has been winning all round so far. I'll take you back to the Asia Cup, the biggest tournament, the biggest continental tournament. And while India did fantastically well in that tournament, they won that particular tournament, we still don't have a trophy to show for that because the Indian team refused to take, for good reason as well, refused to take that trophy from Mohsin Naqvi, who is the Interior Minister of Pakistan. The trophy still lies in the UAE. India, the rightful owners of that trophy, don't have it in their hand. You remember the kind of gestures that were made by Pakistani cricketers on the cricket pitch in terms of their references to aircrafts going down, Indian team refusing to shake hands with Pakistani cricketers. So politics has been winning every round. I think cricket in that sense has been held hostage, and it's just a continuation of that. The only thing I fear for from now on, I think the tournament will go ahead. I don't think Bangladesh in that sense is that important a member there that, ICC is going to now have a change of heart. They've already announced that Scotland is going to be taking their place. Yep. I think the issues will come at the Asian level. Next year, you have an Asia Cup, the same tournament that I was talking about that happened, which India won, that is also an essential tournament in the cricketing universe. At the Asian level, there are just four or five big teams that include Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka. You already have a scenario where three countries now are not going to be seeing eye to eye. I don't know what the future of that tournament will be, but it's not looking good.
Not looking good. Let's see where this goes from here on. Thanks, Nikhil, for joining us with all that perspective. All right, with that,
India battles an airpocalypse. Global economist sounds alarm.
Pollution is a challenge in India and
Asserts pollution worse than tariffs.
if you look at the impact of pollution on the Indian economy, it is far more consequential than any impact of any tariffs that have been put on India so far.
Geeta Gopinath's warning sparks debate. Is pollution India's biggest threat?
the world has descended at Davos for the World Economic Forum. Tariffs, trade, Trump. Those were supposed to be the big T's that we were tracking, that the world was tracking as well. But one of the world's leading economists feels not tariffs, but pollution is an issue largely ignored and should be put into focus. During global events, pollution should be talked about more significantly than anything else. Now, all of this unfolded at a roundtable interaction moderated by India Today's Executive Editor-Chief Kalipuri. Former IMF Chief Economist Geeta Gopinath bared the threat of air pollution, especially for India. She said that pollution can derail India's growth story, impose a heavy cost on both human life and public finances, and also discourage foreign investors looking for a more sustainable market. Her message is striking. Geeta Gopinath argues that pollution today impacts India's economy more than tariffs imposed by Donald Trump. Let that sink in. She calls for a problem to be addressed at war footing by India, saying pollution must become a national mission for India. Listen in.
Geeta, I don't know whether you know, but there's a Rajiv Guava committee which is looking at deregulation. I want to ask you, is making another committee to get rid of bureaucratic red tape the best way forward?
Well, I assume that this is not just a committee for its own sake, but the hope is that it's going to come up with actual actionable plans.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, India needs a lot more deregulation. It is still, in terms of ease of doing business, it is still a challenging place to do business. I'd love to hear from you in terms of what challenges you face. So taking out more and more of the archaic rules that have held back business is absolutely critical. But then all other aspects of India will also have to continue in terms of the reforms will have to continue, the ones we talked about on land and labor. One of the areas I wanted to point out, which we usually don't talk about when you're talking about business development, is I want to talk about pollution. Mm-hmm. Pollution is a challenge in India. And if you look at the impact of pollution on the Indian economy, it is far more consequential than any impact of any tariffs that have been put on India so far. If you look at the annual cost to India's GDP of the level of pollution that you have, and it's not just the effect on economic activity, but it's also the loss in lives. I mean, the numbers are really large. Based on a World Bank study that was done, I think it was published in 22, about 1.7 million lives are lost every year in India because of pollution. That's 18% of the deaths in India. I think even from any international investor's perspective who's thinking of coming in and putting up a shop in India, if you have to live there and you have the environment is not of the kind that you feel that, okay, this is going to be consequential for your health, it holds you back. and obviously not to say, but all the Indians that are living in this kind of pollution. So addressing that on a war footing is critical. I mean, this has to be a mission, a top mission for India.
Be very careful when you hear that, right? The question was not about pollution. The question was not even about health. The question was on business. And the response was that it can't be fixed till the time you fix your pollution. That's how the world at the moment is looking at India. And what Geeta Gopinath has said is backed by data. Let's look at that. The World Bank study paints an equally grim picture that the one she pointed out. India loses about 1.7 million lives every year to pollution, accounting to 18% of all deaths in the country. According to the 2025 Lancet report, 1.72 million people, Indians, have died in 2022 due to air pollution. The economic loss from polluted air stood at a staggering $339.4 billion. Nearly 9.5% of India's GDP wiped out by pollution-linked deaths. That message is unsinkable, and now the world is talking about it. Pollution is not just killing people, it's killing productivity, confidence, and even economic momentum. I took that question to one person who understands all of this very well. This is the editor-in-chief of Lancet, one of the world's most prestigious and oldest peer-reviewed medical journal. This is Richard Horton when asked about pollution. At Davos recently, where the world leaders, political and otherwise, met, there was a panel that was hosted by our chairman, actually. And on that, we were discussing what's going right or wrong with India. In that, Geeta Gopinath went on to say that the biggest issue with India right now is not US tariffs, it's actually air pollution. I want to understand from you, why do you think the government has not, A, recognized the problem, not taken it at war footing, or even has a plan? What's wrong?
It can be done, but as you say, it requires government to recognize that this is causing a problem for the health of the population. Now,
What is the health cost of air pollution?
well, the health cost is, so around 1.6 million people are dying in India because of what's called particulate matter, outdoor pollution. Every single one of those deaths is preventable. So I would say, if I was a citizen of this country, why is my government happy to have 1.5 million citizens dying every year of preventable causes? That is not acceptable. No government should be happy with that. The public needs to say enough is enough. Why aren't they asking more questions of their politicians? Why are they not saying, this is not acceptable. We insist that, and if you don't do it, we're going to vote you out and vote somebody else in. I would just plead on my knees, don't let your politicians off the hook. They're there to represent you, us. They're being paid to represent us. Think about your children. Think about their futures. Make sure that they deliver for them.
All right, so that really puts the record very, very straight. It is a problem. It needs to be recognized. Solutions are there. What's required is political will. And the cost now goes beyond just health. The cost is going to be the GDP of this country. Let's take that question to our guest now. Joining me next is Dr. Kiran Bedi. She's the former IPS officer, needs no introduction really, former LG for Puducherry as well. Dr. Bedi is actually someone who was one of the first people to start speaking out on air pollution, and huge respect to ma'am for having done that. Dr. Kiran Bedi, my question is this. It has now come to a point where pollution is not just a debate on a news channel. It's a matter of concern for India globally. It's being picked up in conversations on business and economy.
Yes, because the capital of India, where there's a peak tourist season, capital of India, when it was peak tourism season, just was not transportable. You could not be out on the road. There were some weeks where the level went up to 700, 800, at some places even more. So once this made media news, and not only media news, it restricted people's mobility. And the statistics is showing, the economics is showing how tourism fell, hospitality fell, the people who have hotels, footfalls fell. It was somewhere in today's paper yesterday. All this was affected. Why? Because quality of life was affected. Quality of life. That's when quality of life and mobility is affected. Everything gets grinding all. Everything slows down. So economy is also equally affected. When it comes to health, whether it's statistics or not, the question is, you breathe clean air and you breathe dirty air. What makes you healthy and what makes you unhealthy? Dirty air makes you unhealthy and clean air makes you healthy. And
Ma'am, but it's
once
so
it makes you
simple.
unhealthy,
It is so
which organ
simple,
of the
and
body affects?
everybody is talking about it. What is stopping the government from taking concrete actions here? After consistent reporting, we finally had GRAP 4 implemented. Now, GRAP 4, as you all understand, is a double whammy, right? It's really hard for people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, because it stops construction work, labor doesn't get work, they don't get paid. They're saying it's back to the pandemic situation. We are the ones who suffer the most. All of this is correct. But why have we not seen? Last time you were on the program, you said the Prime Minister must step in. We still haven't had the Prime Minister step in on this issue.
Well, Supreme Court has stepped in very heavily. I think if you see today's AQM has reported back to the Honorable Supreme Court of entire checklist of what needs to be done. In fact, this is come just not too late, but thank God it's finally come. The AQM has the body has given a full checklist of all which department must do what. And do you know what it's saying? It's collaborative. That means the entire governance is involved, because there's so many departments involved, and that's the reason at that time I requested the top of the leadership to step in to bring in collaborative and make it a coalition. The AQM and the matter to the Supreme Court exactly saying this, and it's listing every department with to-do list. It's a to-do list. Now, how do you presume to do this? I think go by the way Prime Minister of India does infrastructure. The Prime Minister of India does Pragati model. Pragati is bringing for infrastructure, bringing the key ministries together, and he evaluates that immensely. That's why we've had on time very good clean airports. We've got highways in time. We've got railways coming on time. And because of his Pragati scheme, why not bring something like Pragati for even air pollution? Because there are many departments involved, and therefore they need very coordinated work. So the checklist which has gone to the Honorable Supreme Court today, I think it was in today's paper, where the AQ of the body, the quality management body, has for the first time listed a to-do list for every department, whether it's industry, whether
Ma'am, but who will ensure implementation? When it comes to India, ma'am, the problem is not that we don't have solutions. We have the brightest minds in the world that are, and solutions are plenty. Solutions are also known. Some solutions are low-hanging fruits. But why? We struggle with the implementation, right? GRAP 4 is there, but how many cars are flouting it? Nobody's checking. GRAP 3 is there. You're supposed to be putting out those water sprinklers outside and covering your construction sites. How many places is that happening? There's open violation every day that happens, and we live with it. Implementation is the issue. As somebody who's been on the implementation side of things, what do you think is holding back the government on this issue?
Because you need to bring in everybody together on a regular basis. All these ministries which are mentioned now by the AQM, and the Supreme Court is in fact exactly on the anvil of directing them to put systems in place which bring all of them together on the same pattern as Pragati is done by the Honorable Prime Minister. And I think, Sonal, that's the only way it will work. They have to learn to work together and then understand where the baton, what is hurting where, and they correct it. I think India needs a very coordinated governance, not isolated governance, not silos, but very coordinated governance at the levels of the Chief Minister, at the level of the Chief Secretaries. Once you do it, and at the level of the Honorable Union Environment Minister, the Union Environment Minister, State Environment Ministers, chief ministers and chief secretaries. The day they all start working together on a regular weekly basis and then review what is stopping where, will we see a change? Because that's where finances will be, because everything has a cost. Supposing you today decide to have a transportation change, it's a whole, the whole electrification of buses.
What's stopping them? What's
electrification of
stopping
trucks.
them to
It's a
start
whole-
on it
whole-
today? Yeah, that's the brilliant million-dollar question, right? Like, what's stopping them to start all of that today? Like we said, pollution. The solutions for pollutions are plenty. They are there. You have people who are ready to work. We just want the political will to make it happen. Kiran Bedi, thank you so much for joining us. So with all those thoughts, let me also cut across to my colleague, in fact, environmentalist. I call him a colleague now because of all the pollution work that we've been doing. Vimblendu Jha, environmentalist, is with us now. Vimblendu, I think this is it, right? You don't need, I think Geeta Gopinath has woken up all those people who said pollution is not an issue. At the World Economic Forum, on a question of business and economy, when you say, no, first fix pollution, I think you don't need a better argument, right? Now the question is, how will we act on this?
I think it's, what she said is what we've been telling everyone. I've told you several times that the cost of inaction actually is higher than cost of action. Imagine the loss to GDP that she was actually talking about. And if you look at the World Bank report of 2022, of course, she was referring to Lancet, but mistakenly referred to World Bank in that sense, in terms of death. The death figure was actually the part of the Lancet study in that sense. But World Bank says that the loss is almost 9%. And more than 9% in that sense of our GDP, which actually comes to 30 lakh crores. So, all of this great submission in terms of Supreme Court that Dr. Bedi was actually talking about, I don't believe it, because at the end of the day, you will be able to achieve that list. That list has been in the public domain for at least 12 years, Sonal. We all have that list in terms of whether vehicular pollution should stop, whether the thermal power plant should be phased out or should not be releasing sulfur dioxide. What Geeta Gopinath actually talked about is that we need to invest in air pollution, because that needs to be an incentive, because there's a loss to our economy, and loss as per World Bank report already of 30 lakh crores. By the way, what is the budget that we have of Delhi when we are saying that the loss is 30 lakh crores? The budget to clean our air is just 30 crores, and majority of that is unspent. So India's budget for the entire for 6 years was around 19,700 crores for 120 cities. And imagine 19,000 crores for 6 years means 300 crores, while we're losing 30 lakh crores year on year in terms of economic loss. And of course, the loss to life in terms of mortality is around 70 lakh people as per Lancet. And of course, many, many more people in terms of morbidity and the impact that it actually has. So I think, it's an issue that needs to be dealt with at the top, as the question that you asked, that why is the Prime Minister quiet? Why is the Environment Minister? We haven't seen the proportionate political will. That's the question that needs to be answered urgently, because it's not just an embarrassment for us, as in today it's been in news globally in terms of how Geeta Gopinath actually raised the issue of pollution in a conversation which was to do with economics largely, in terms of tariff and our labor and incentives to really invest much, much more, how India should become perhaps the third largest economy. But becoming the third largest economy is easier, as she said, that perhaps in the next 3 years will be a very, very strong economy. But imagine we'll be a sick nation. So proportionate action and a rapid, quick action is extremely important, and something which you've been saying, that it cannot be reactive, it cannot be knee-jerk. We will have to get on that path of progress, and that progress cannot just be grabbed at all. Because imagine, like in last 1 week, we've seen grab 3, grab 4, like almost as if it's some kind of a ping pong game that the government has been playing, because that's the only game that they know to play, as if GRAP is the only measure when it comes to air quality.
I'm not sure if they're playing that very well either, because the implementation seems to be very weak on the ground. Just in a small place like NCR, it's not even across the country. It's just these 3 little towns that come together and have the most powerful people, the most affluent people in the country, but none of that matters, because all of this is a loss. But I'll tell you my takeaway from this entire conversation, because budget is around the corner. I'm mindful of that. I think this conversation should hit the Indian government hard. They should wake up, smell the air, as they say at this point, and say that in the upcoming budget, there should be a very clear allocation to clean up India's air. It is not just about health ministry and environment ministry. It is finance and corporate affairs and economy. It impacts
And agriculture
everybody
and
in
transport and
every
every
way.
ministry.
Agriculture, transport, all of that. It impacts anybody and everybody, and that should be made a priority. Let's just hope that after hearing it at a platform like Davos, the government will finally wake up and do something about it. We surely are here to support them in every way possible to turn this into a reality. Thank you, Vimlendu, for joining us yet again on this very, very important matter. All right, moving on now. Yuvraj Mehta's death in Noida, the tragedy that could have been prevented. He cried out for 2 hours. We showed you all those visuals. We showed you the timeline as well. 2 hours of waiting desperately, 2 hours of receiving no help. And now, chilling visuals have emerged showing the ordeal he faced in that last 1 hour of his life. The horror isn't just what happened, but it's about what didn't happen. You see that visual on your screen and you see that little light that we have circled? That is Yuvraj, alive and crying for help. And on the other side, you see officials, some 100 of them, standing right there, just meters away from him, flashlights, life jackets, boat, ropes, everything intact, but nobody went in to save him. What exactly happened? We've been talking about it, but for the first time, you get this video to exactly understand. You see Yuvraj, and you see how incompetent our disaster response forces were. Take a look.
2 hours of crying out, 2 hours of waiting desperately, 2 hours of receiving no help. The tragic ordeal of Yuvraj Mehta, summed up in this chilling visual that has now emerged. The tragedy here isn't just what happened, it's what did not happen. That prick of light you see here represents the last bit of hope that Yuvraj was clinging onto. It was a torchlight from his mobile phone, which Yuvraj was using to guide the rescue officials to his location. You can even hear the rescue workers calling out to try harder. The panic was setting in as the rescue officials realized Yuvraj's car was stuck in weed. Especially when they realized that the water was too deep, their efforts were all in vain. The water was just too deep, the fog too impenetrable. Yuvraj kept shouting, but the extraction never happened. No boat, no rope, no rescue. Bureau Report, India Today.
In fact, if you see that video, and we'll put that out on YouTube for all of you to see at length as well, you can hear them saying, "Pani bahut thanda hai." You can hear the disaster response team saying, "Yahan rassi choti hai." You can hear them say that ye to ja nahi pa raha hai, jhadi mein phas gaya hai, that it's getting stuck in the weeds over there. How do we go? If they don't know how to go, then in the end, what did happen, you'll remember, in the end, what did happen was that a civilian went in. In fact, let me request my producers to put that story up for you to see again. The civilian who had gone in. We spoke with him yesterday and we tried to understand what was the exact situation on the ground. We'll get that story out as well, but just look at those visuals. Look at Yuvraj. You see that little torchlight that he has of his phone. He was there for 2 hours crying for help, saying, you know, if you can hear me. He flashed his light as well and said, this is my exact location. I can see it clearly with our eyes in that video, this very grainy video taken in the middle of the night there, roughly around 2:30. That was the last time they had heard his voice. And you see all those officials who all arrived in time, but just did not have perhaps the mean or the willpower to go inside and find him. So far we'd been looking at timelines, eyewitness accounts, but this video really puts the picture very, very clearly for anybody to see it for themselves. We talked about that eyewitness. Listen into what he had to say. मुनिंदर जी, आप कह रहे हैं कि सेफ्टी जैकेट्स भी थी, मतलब वहां पर कई लोग ऐसे थे जिनको स्विमिंग नहीं आती है लेकिन इमरजेंसी रिस्पांस में अगर है तो वो डाइव करके उसको निकाल सकते थे, या जैकेट उसकी तरफ फेंकी जा सकती थी?
जी जी जी, सब चीज मौजूद थी। बाकायदा मैं भी सेफ्टी जैकेट पहन के अंदर गया था, रस्सा बांध के, अपनी कमर से रस्सा बांध के मैं अंदर गया था। और वहां पे 3x6 की एक छोटी नाव भी थी, जो कि उस लड़के को बहुत ही आसानी से बचा लिया जाता। पर उसके अंदर वो किस लिए नहीं गए वो मुझे नहीं पता है जी। बट ये बोल रहे थे कि अंदर सरिया है, बेसमेंट है, बहुत सर्दी है, धुंध है, अंधेरा है। मैंने 1:45 से 50 मिनट के बीच में गया। मैंने देखा कि कुछ लोगों से पूछा तो बोल रहे थे कि 11:45 से एक लड़का इस बेसमेंट में, इस गड्ढे में गिर चुका है और उसकी 5 मिनट पहले ही आवाज आनी बंद हुई है। तो मतलब मैं पहुंचा था 1:45-50 पे। तो मैंने बोला, कुछ वहां पर जो सरकारी महकमे से लोग खड़े थे, मगर सर मैं अंदर जा सकता हूँ क्या? उन्होंने एकदम डायरेक्ट मना कर दिया कि नहीं, अपनी आप नहीं जा सकते। मैं बोला, सर मुझ पे तैरना आता है, तो आप कहो तो मैं जा सकता हूँ। नो, आप पे तैरना आता है? जी हाँ। नो ठीक है, तो आप जा सकते हैं। मैंने अपनी कमर से रस्सा बांधा, सीधा रस्सा बांध कर मैं सीधा 2 मिनट की सारी 2 मिनट के अंदर मैंने सारी बात भी की और सीधा मैं पानी में दाग गया। अंदर जाकर मैंने उस भाई को कम से कम 30 से 40 मिनट सर्च किया था, मुझे नहीं मिला था, इतने वो भाई डूब चुका था।
पर मुनिंदर जी, मुझे ये बताइए, आप कह रहे हैं वहां पर एक एक नाव, जिसे आप कह रहे हैं एक बोट भी थी। मुझे बताया गया कि वो बोट करीब 6 बजे आई है, जब तक वो ऑलरेडी डूब चुका था। आप कह रहे हैं आप जब पहुंचे वहां पर, जब तक आवाजें आ रही थी तब भी बोट मौजूद थी?
3x6 की बोट भी थी, मेरे पास वीडियो है, अगर आप देखना चाहेंगे तो। वो वीडियो में सांप, फायर ब्रिगेड वाला उसपे बैठा हुआ दिख रहा है, हाथ मार रहा है चप्पू की तरह। उनके पास चप्पू नहीं थे।
बोट थी, चप्पू नहीं थे चलाने के, क्या ये कह रहे हैं आप?
मतलब वो जैसे वो होती है ना, जैसे कि 3x, जिसे हवा भर लेते हैं, हवा भरी हुई होती है, वो डूबती नहीं। अगर उस पर 2 आदमी बैठ जाएगा तो वो तब भी नहीं डूबती है। उस लड़के को और सेफ्टी जैकेट भी थी, 100 मीटर का रस्सा भी था। मेरी आंखों देखी, वहां जितने भी लोग हैं सब ये कह रहे थे उस लड़के को बहुत आसानी से बचा लिया जाता। वैसे अगर ठंड का डरना होता, ठंडे पानी का डरना होता, अंधेरे का डरना होता, सरिया का डरना होता, जो इंसान जिस चीज के लिए पर्सनली तैयार किए गए हैं, ट्रेंड के लिए किए गए हैं, अगर वो इंसान उसी चीज से डर जाए तो वो ट्रेंड किस तरीके से हुए फिर, या किस तरीके से उस महकमे में भर्ती हुए हैं।
And why Yuvraj's story hits such a raw nerve for anybody living in Delhi NCR, it's because you feel when you walk around, drive around Delhi NCR, especially Noida, Greater Noida, that there are so many similar, turns like these, which are now being called death traps. Exposed roads, street lights missing, sometimes sharp turns without reflectors. So we did a little bit of a survey. Our colleagues went out on the roads of Noida and Greater Noida to find out how many such death traps actually exist. Open drains running parallelly to very busy highways with no barricades, no warning signs, no protection, in fog or low visibility. One wrong move can be fatal. An authority is acting only, or perhaps in certain cases not even acting, when a life is lost. Take a look at this report to understand more on how many more such instances are just waiting to happen.
Yuvraj's death in Noida is not just one family's tragedy, it underlines a harsh truth. Negligence is normal and deadly roads are its consequence. India today went to the ground to expose these deadly lapses in Greater Noida, where roads that appear modern have the potential to become silent killers. Near Gaur City 2, the bypass connecting the Delhi-Meerut highway to the Yamuna Expressway runs parallel to an open drain. In many stretches, the road and the drain are at the same level. There's no wall, no barricade, no warning. In dense fog or low visibility, a single mistake can send a vehicle straight into the drain.
Noida extension, Greater Noida West, which is full of the high-rise apartments. Lakhs of people are living, spending lakhs of rupees, crores of rupees buying apartment. But there are stretches where eventually could unfold multiple such instances. For example, right near the Gaur Chowk in this area, look at this drainage side. The nala side, the drain size, is around 20 to 25 meters, and any vehicle, you see the number of vehicles that are coming from the other side of the road, and all these vehicles, if there is a zero visibility, that could potentially lead to another catastrophic disaster.
At the Gorchok underpass, the negligence is even more brazen. With construction work underway, one side has warning signs. The other, where vehicles are moving, runs alongside a deep drain with no protection. Two-wheelers, autos, cars, trucks, anyone can fall in. Lives are at risk every single day.
Any vehicle coming, losing minor control, zero visibility, and under such condition, eventually the vehicle will come, would likely take a little left, even while overtaking. It is a potentially disastrous, could claim another life, could take another life, another person could be killed. Look at this. The drainage is open, and that's only a metallic part of the sheet. There is no signage, no protecting barrier, no metal sheet, no information, nothing. It is a blind spot, a deadly blind spot, just near the construction of Gorchok underpass on this Taj highway.
In Tech Zone 4 in Bisrak, authorities have finally woken up. Warning strips are now being installed along the drain. But this action came only after Yuvraj died in the same kind of negligence. These are not roads, they are open threats. Every unguarded drain, every missing barricade is an invitation to disaster. Yuvraj became a victim of a callous system. Tomorrow, it could be you. With Ashutosh Mishra, Bureau Report, India Today.
In more updates coming in on the Noida Techie death story, more properties of the Noida builder have now been sealed. Builders Abhay Kumar and Nirmal Kumar's office has also been sealed. Both of the builders were located, of course, in Noida and were the ones behind the building of the mall. That was supposed to be a mall. Construction had stopped. Water had filled up. That's where Yuvraj at that night in his car went in. My colleague Arvind Oja has been tracking all those developments and we will go to him in just a minute. All right, Arvind, हमें ज़रा बताइए कि इस समय इनकी कौन-कौन सी और प्रॉपर्टीज़ हैं जिसे अभी सील करा गया है, क्या-क्या सारे जितने लांछन इनके ऊपर लगाए गए हैं, नोएडा पुलिस क्या बता रही है?
देखिए, ये इंडिया टुडे का बड़ा इम्पैक्ट है। जो अभय कुमार है, जिसे पहले ही नोएडा पुलिस ने अरेस्ट किया था, विश टाउन का ये डायरेक्टर है। इसका जो ऑफिस है उसको सील किया गया है। नोएडा सेक्टर 62 में इसका कॉर्पोरेट ऑफिस है, उसे सील किया गया है। जबकि निर्मल जो नाम का शख्स है, उसकी दिल्ली में जो प्रॉपर्टी है, जो कॉर्पोरेट ऑफिस है, उसको सील किया गया है। निर्मल जो लोटस ग्रीन का बिल्डर है, लोटस ग्रीन टाउनशिप है, उसका बिल्डर है। तो दोनों के खिलाफ एक्शन लिया गया है। हालांकि निर्मल अभी तक अरेस्ट नहीं है। आज 2 और बिल्डर को अरेस्ट किया था नोएडा पुलिस ने। कुल मिलाकर 3 बिल्डर अरेस्ट हो चुके हैं। लेकिन ये अब एक बड़ा एक्शन हुआ है। दोनों का जो कॉर्पोरेट ऑफिस है उसको सील कर दिया गया है।
All right, Arvind, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed with that information. And we keep you alive on this bulletin by always keeping a check on your health as well. And this next story is really a fascinating one. We've been constantly educating you on what are GLP-1 drugs, the weight loss injections as we know them as. Now, 4 of these brands are available in India, but every day there's a new study coming as well. This one is particularly fascinating. Your weight loss will also now lead to profiting of the airlines. Not being able to make the correlation. I struggled at first as well. But then that's the story. If everybody on the flight actually weighs less, how will that impact airlines? Neha has this very fascinating report.
Your weight loss medicines are benefiting airlines. Confused? Well, I'll say that again. Your weight loss medicine that is helping you and folks world over lose weight. GLP-1 medicines are going to be helping airlines cut costs. According to a study published by Jefferies, a financial services firm, the 4 largest US carriers, American Airlines, Delta Airlines, Southwest Airlines and United Airlines could together save as much as $580 million every single year on fuel thanks to weight loss drugs known as GLP-1s. Airlines always look for any way to reduce the weight, as we know, of the aircraft, be the weight of the baggage, hence the excess baggage cost, or weight of a passenger. 1 in 8 US adults said that they are on GLP-1 in a survey that was done in November, published by KFF, a non-profit health research group. Fuel, remember, is among airlines' largest expenses. The Jefferies study estimates that the 4 airlines will together consume 16 billion gallons of fuel in 2026 at a total cost of $38.6 billion, which is nearly 20% of their total expenses. The savings from skinnier, thinner passengers would amount to just 1.5% of fuel cost. Airlines including Air New Zealand, Finnair and Korean Air have in the past drawn criticism for weighing some passengers at the gate to help calculate weight and balance. Really not the most politically correct way of going about things. But the indirect benefit of skinnier passengers thanks to GLP-1 medicines is what airlines can avail of right now.
All right, from Ozempic menus to Ozempic Airlines now. Well, that's an interesting angle and story to watch out for. You can get all those details on our India Today and Health Wealth website as well. For the moment, thank you for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.